7 years into our marriage, my husband cheated on his sponsored student. Not only did he not bother to hide it, he announced his one-wife-one-mistress arrangement right in front of me. Even worse, he said with a straight face, "I'll give you my love and give her my body. I'm wrecked on both of you." I asked for divorce papers. He didn't even flinch. "Indulge in anything you want, except leaving me." After that, I found my own college student, and we slept together every day in the house we once shared in Beverly Hills. He nearly smashed the master bedroom door off its hinges. Before we go on, subscribe to this channel and drop a comment telling us where you're listening from. Adrian smiled, soft as silk. He just hung up a video call with the girl, and that smile still carried the leftover glow of happiness. I could still remember, 7 years ago, how that same gentle, devoted smile would light up his face whenever he looked at me. "Viv," he pulled me into a tight embrace, as if graciously letting me share the last dregs of that warmth. The whole scene was absurd. "You two are perfect together." I stared at the phone in his hand. His lock screen was now Sophie's photo, and let out a cold laugh. If I weren't still trapped in his arms, I might have shipped them myself. The man who once swore we'd sail through life together had, in a single year, been bewitched by the scholarship girl he bankrolled at UCLA. He didn't even bother to keep it from me. "Viv, don't be like that." Adrian spoke as though he were declaring some earth-shattering devotion. Arms locked around me, utterly serious. He said, "My love is yours, my body hers. I'm wrecked on both of you. What an honor." My voice was ice, but he chose not to notice. "You're my lawful wife. No one can take your place." Pride glowed on his face, as if he were flaunting his own faithfulness. "Think of it as a small concession, one wife, one mistress. I'll be good to you both. Good to us both." I wrenched myself free. The arms that once warmed me now felt freezer cold. I searched his face for a trace of guilt and found none, only that same smile. The man I knew best suddenly looked like a stranger, and the sight made my heart lurch. The tender grin I once drowned in now turned my stomach. A lollipop half bitten by a stranger is nothing but garbage. Nobody wants the leftover spit. I kept wondering what had kept me with him for 7 years. No answer surfaced. Every memory felt like a punchline to a bad joke. "Let's get divorced." An ache rose in my throat, heat prickling behind my eyes, but he no longer deserved to witness my weakest moment. He shrugged. "Indulge in anything, except divorce." He probably thought it was a bargaining chip for more affection, yet the word indulge made me want to vomit. "Indulge me, will you? Then I'll show you what real indulgence looks like." Adrian used to be penniless. He once swore I was the only one he'd ever love, and for a while I'd thanked heaven for that luck. That's why I fought every objection to be with him. With my backing, his tech ventures eventually eclipsed the entire Vance family empire based in Silicon Valley. Divorce. Impractical, at least for now. The Vance fortune was braided too tightly with his. "Viv, Sophie moves in tomorrow. Play nice." He said it as if announcing the weather. "Sure, I'll give her my room." I laughed out loud. While he stared, I started packing my clothes and relocated to the guest room. Sophie showed up right on cue. No surprise, Adrian's mistress looked heartachingly innocent, all wide eyes and small-town purity from Portland. Yet I caught the smug glint she couldn't quite hide. She hovered at the doorway like a frightened fawn, voice barely a whisper. "Vivian, thank you for having me." That squeaky act. No wonder Adrian melted. I swallowed the urge to snap and simply nodded. Adrian hurried over to sling a protective arm around her. "Don't worry, Sophie. Viv's great. She won't bully you." Sophie nestled closer, fluttering like a lovebird. How touching, husband and mistress in perfect harmony, glued together by cheap romance. They cuddled and whispered in front of me as if I were invisible or already extinct. Adrian never had much self-control. Within minutes his breathing turned ragged, and he tugged her toward the master bedroom. Sophie followed, half protesting, half inviting. "Stop. Vivian's still here," she cooed, cheeks stubbornly pale. Her quick glance my way begged either for rescue or for applause. "Viv's cool with it, aren't you, babe? That's why Sophie's here." He flicked his chin at me. "Absolutely. I'm the picture of generosity. Do whatever you want." I forced the sentence out, every syllable a shard of glass. One more word from them and I would have exploded, but they disappeared into what used to be half my bedroom the instant I finished. Not out of courtesy, Adrian simply didn't realize I was already nuclear. He knows I've never had a sweet temper. I sat in the living room, TV blaring, yet even the explosions on screen couldn't drown out the racket behind the wall. Sophie's moans were theatrical. Fingernails on chalkboard sharp. The bedroom's insulation is solid, but those waves of shrill pleasure still seeped through. Back when Adrian first floated his one-wife-one-mistress idea, I wanted to claw his eyes out and file the papers that same night, but the little burst of anger didn't last. I smothered it almost immediately. Yet when the scene I'd imagined materialized in front of me, the tears still came, streaming down without stopping. Adrian wasn't even trying to keep his voice down. I could hear every low gasp, every carefully maintained croon of tenderness, slow down, baby. Don't wear yourself out. My stomach lurched violently. The house had been dark, but suddenly it was bright again. I had no idea when dawn broke. I'd stared at the TV all night, yet it still felt painfully short. Soon Sophie padded into the living room wearing Adrian's shirt. The collar drooped off one shoulder, and the upright fold of the cuff failed to hide the telltale red marks along her collarbone and neck. Morning, Viv. Her syrupy greeting made me physically nauseous. Noticing my swollen eyes, her smile only widened. She glided to the kitchen, slipped on the apron I alone had ever worn, and stationed herself at the stove where I always cook breakfast. Adrian sat at the far end of the sofa, silent. Viv, I made breakfast. Hope it suits you. About an hour later, Sophie carried in a tray and placed it between us, charcoal black scrambled eggs for me, and a half-spilled glass of iced milk for Adrian. Viv, is it terrible? Seeing my revulsion, Sophie's eyes reddened instantly. She bit her lip in wounded innocence. Nothing to do with you, I said flatly. I just don't eat other people's leftovers. I didn't need to look up to picture her face. Adrian's brows crashed together. Viv, watch your tone. Sophie cooked breakfast as a kindness. Apologized to Sophie. His expression iced over, devoid of warmth. I'd only seen that look twice before. Once when a sleazy classmate cornered me at Stanford, and once when a stranger followed me home to my Manhattan apartment at night. Every time, Adrian materialized like a shield. Gentle Adrian, hardly ever cold. Now that same coldness was aimed at me, and I felt locked in a freezer. Warmth draining away. This was what indulgence looked like. Sick, obsessive indulgence, the kind that once held me like a treasure. Pathetic. Vivian, are you listening? His brows shot upright. I heard him, both ears crystal clear, simply chose not to answer. I rarely drink, not because I can't, but because I never needed to. Adrian used to say my stomach was delicate. At every gala in San Francisco, he'd intercept my glass, tuck me in later with warm honey water, whispering, Viv, alcohol eats at you. While I'm here, you won't have to touch it. Looking back, those words were sugar-coated needles. The sugar has melted, and the metal digs deeper each time it shifts. I drove to a trendy bar in Silver Lake and ordered the strongest whiskey on the shelf. The first swallow scorched my throat and set my gut churning. Let it burn. At least the pain numbed the ache in my chest. Gradually, the gentle smile in my heart blurred and dissolved. That man no longer belonged to me, but I gripped the glass too hard. It slipped and exploded across the floor in a glittering splash. Sorry, your drink got knocked over. May I replace it? A clear voice drifted from above, wrapped in careful apology. When I looked up, I almost saw the Adrian of years ago. Same soft features, same easy smile, eyes so unclouded they looked borrowed from another world, shining with kindness. Definitely still in college, I thought. I smiled. The boy wore the bar's branded shirt, meticulously blotting the spilled liquor. His forearms, revealed beneath rolled sleeves, were slender, the fingers surprisingly elegant. No need. I spilled it. I'll order the next one myself. I waved him off. He didn't leave right away. After studying me a moment, he murmured, Ma'am, hard liquor on an empty stomach can hurt. This might help, and set a peppermint drop beside my glass before heading back to the bar. The mint blunted the whiskey fumes and did settle my stomach. I admit it. I felt a spark. I walked over and took a stool across from him, ordering nothing, just resting my chin in my hand while he worked. His clean-cut face stayed focused, his smile never slipping. Communication between people can be damn complicated, or astonishingly simple. With Adrian, loving him had been effortless. Once love left, even a single sentence became a battlefield. It was 3 a.m. My phone screen had stayed black all night. Adrian hadn't sent a single iMessage. In his eyes, I'm still the girl who can't live without him. But if honey hides a needle, a few drops of honey can't heal the wound. And now there's no honey left. He wouldn't spare me a single drop even if I begged. Ma'am, is something wrong? The boy behind the counter sounded politely concerned. What's your name? A blunt, even rude question, bordering on cougar territory. Julian Carter. He blinked, then answered with earnest courtesy. Only a college kid from USC would introduce himself so formally. I mused, and almost laughed at my own joke. Everyone's been a student once. Got a girlfriend? I've always been direct. Adrian used to be the only exception. Maybe because I actually cared. No girlfriend. Julian flushed, embarrassment flickering with something bleaker. Families? Tight. My mom's sick in a Chicago hospital, so I'm working nights to pay her bills and my tuition. The humility stung. Once Adrian had stood on that same bottom rung, broke down crying when I whispered, "You pushed too hard," and lit up like Christmas over a homemade lunch. Only now, it seems, has this feeling become something to be remembered. You've worked too hard. I sighed softly and murmured the very words that once made Adrian cry. My voice was barely a whisper, but Julian clearly heard them. No, not hard at all. He was still smiling, yet the the bitterness inside that smile had thickened. Earning a little more money means I can keep my mom in treatment and finish school. Pretty good deal. To someone like me, already once married, I understand too well what not hard really means. It isn't that it isn't hard, it's that you don't dare feel it's hard. Most of the time, grievances are wrapped in a shell called being sensible, a shell that, unnoticed, is studded with barbs that end up hurting you. Nights at the quiet Silver Lake bar are never very long. By 2 a.m. the crowd starts thinning, and around 3 only a handful of guests remain. Julian's shift seems to be ending, too. Walk with me a bit. I waited until he dried the last whiskey glass. I've already been presumptuous several times. Once more won't matter. The night is hushed. Almost no cars pass on the tree-lined streets, and the streetlights have dimmed to their overnight setting. Beyond our shadows, I can barely make out Julian's face. It was that easy to lure you away. Aren't you afraid I'll sell you off? I joked, feeling myself drift further and further down the path of a female hooligan. Not afraid, Julian answered with utter seriousness. He sighed, then laughed again. In a city like LA you meet every kind of person. Getting hit on happens all the time, but someone as gentle as Viv. First time. The same nickname sounds completely different depending on who says it. Gentle, me. I gave a silent, rueful laugh. I still remember Adrian once saying I was perfect in every way except I lacked tenderness. That as a woman I was too independent, leaving him no chance to feel the triumph and satisfaction of protecting me. In a trance I recalled Adrian's promise that whenever I needed him, he would appear and shield me behind his back. Without thinking, I glanced at my phone screen, still pitch black. Perhaps I've gone numb, or maybe I've simply let go. I used to have an awful temper. The smallest thing would set me off like a firecracker. My husband would say I was a little firecracker, and after I exploded he'd move heaven and earth to coax me back to smiles. I spoke distractedly. The memory isn't that distant, yet retrieving it feels exhausting, as though Adrian and Sophie have forcibly excised it. Julian stayed silent for a long while, then asked, "And later?" He's observant. Of course he sensed something had changed. What kind of husband lets his wife linger alone in a bar this late? Later, I tugged the corner of my mouth, trying for a smile, but I couldn't shape one. Later my temper improved, but I was still found lacking. So he found himself someone who could play pitiful and proposed our one-wife-one-mistress arrangement. I aimlessly kicked a pebble along the curb, finally forcing a smile that must have looked hideous. He believes love and sex can be separated. He'll cuddle another woman right in front of me in our Beverly Hills home. But I'm human. I still feel pain. These words have been buried inside me. I've never had anyone to tell. Truthfully, I don't even know whom I could tell. My entire 7-year marriage orbited Adrian. Looking back, I realize I barely kept any social life. Back then Adrian was my whole universe. Now that I've lost that universe, I'm not sure what remains. Viv, don't cry. Sorrow clouded Julian's face as he handed me a tissue. Only then did I notice the tears that had slipped out without my knowing. I'm not crying. It's just a bit windy. At my stubborn insistence, Julian finally gave in and let me walk him home as if we were out for a stroll. His place is a rundown walk-up in East LA, close to the bar. From the outside it looks like a crumbling apartment building. Only worse, cheaper rent, seedier tenants. It's hard to imagine such a glittering city like Los Angeles hiding corners this bleak. I almost think that if someone were murdered here, there'd be no cameras to record it. Viv, head home soon. Julian nodded toward the dilapidated building behind him, signaling we'd arrived. All right, good night. A reckless idea suddenly popped into my head, so I stepped closer and, grinning mischievously, pulled him into a tight embrace. He froze for a second but didn't pull away. Instead, he returned the hug politely and whispered, "Viv, be happy. If he treats you badly, just don't keep enduring it." I merely nodded. Up to this moment, I've indeed kept enduring Adrian. Sophie can steal him, I know, but her motives aren't pure. If I wanted to make a scene, snatching him back wouldn't be difficult. But afterward, won't there someday appear Eleni or Chloe? After swapping contact info with Julian, I wandered the streets aimlessly. The roads were quiet, nothing but my own footsteps, until, very soon, I heard a different sound, one that filled me with dread. Without realizing it, I'd entered an unfamiliar alleyway near downtown LA, and each time I moved forward, scattered footsteps matched me from behind. Instinctively, I sped up, and the footsteps quickened in response. The memory slammed me back to right after college when Adrian and I had started working. He refused to use my money and rented a cheap, out-of-the-way apartment in Oakland. One night the same thing happened. Probably why I clung to him so devotedly all these years. "Adrian, will you come save me?" I was already gasping. My stiletto heels crippled most of my speed, though I knew the answer would be no. At this moment of danger Adrian's promise echoed in my head, He'd appear whenever I most needed him and shield me behind his back. I dialed him at once. The call connected for 2 seconds, then was instantly cut off. Adrian. A wave of utter despair washed over me. You said you'd protect me, so where the hell are you? Come shield me. He really is a liar. I didn't dare look back. I could only run for my life. I had barely broken into a run when a stabbing pain shot through my ankle. Nothing feels more pathetic than twisting an ankle while someone's tailing you. Yet somehow I managed to be that pathetic. I pressed against the freezing wall, hissing at the spike of pain. Tears still slipped out, but right then I could read my own feelings. Self-pity outweighed fear by miles. Another figure appeared up ahead. I didn't dare look. I just covered my head and waited for the worst. Viv. The clear voice was breathless. Yet to me it sounded like salvation. It was Julian. How did you? I leaned into him, shaking so hard I couldn't finish the sentence. I could only stare. Julian steadied me, his face suddenly arctic. He glared past me down the street, authority crackling in his tone. Back off. For an instant that clean, handsome face merged with the one in my memories, then it erased Adrian's image completely. The men behind us said nothing and simply bolted. Viv. It's okay, now. He was jittery too. The bravado had been for show. A choked sob escaped me. I threw myself against his chest and burst into tears. All the stored up grievances pouring out as I pounded on him with my fists. Julian sat on the pavement and took it, his eyes carrying something unreadable. Guilt, maybe, or tenderness. Only when I'd cried myself dry did he lift me to my feet. How did you get here? I still wondered. He'd shown up impossibly fast. This neighborhood's rough. I worried. I saw you were being followed and you were sprinting, so I cut through an alley. Nervousness still clung to him. He'd heard stories. Never lived one. So technically you were tailing me too. I managed a weak laugh. I had to admire my own timing for jokes. Yeah. I guess I was. Julian scratched his head. Sorry, I should have walked you home. It's not too late now. I cut in, voicing the wish out loud. Sometimes a bond forms in a heartbeat, quicker than things fall apart. But you might not like it. He clearly wanted to, yet he hesitated. He knew whose door home was and who waited inside. I want you to take me, I said, meaning every word. This time I wouldn't swallow it. I wanted a beginning. The sky was still pitch dark when I led Julian into the Beverly Hills house I shared with Adrian. Adrian was obviously asleep with Sophie. After Sophie claimed the master bedroom, I'd moved to the attic, quieter up there. Viv, let me get some arnica gel for that. He carried me upstairs to the attic bedroom and set me on the bed. Still tiptoeing. Scared? I teased, watching him with amusement, a giggle slipping out. He didn't answer. Under my directions he found the first aid kit, then sat and bent over my swollen ankle, his cool fingers brushing my skin and sending a shiver through me. Hold still. This will hurt. I pressed his hand away and dug out the arnica gel. Adrian used to patch me up, but I bit the sentence off. That expired tenderness wasn't worth mentioning. Viv, we only met today, yet it feels like I've known you forever, Julian murmured while smoothing on the cream, and the words set my pulse racing. Heat flooded my cheeks, whether from the remark or from the warming skin beneath his touch. I couldn't tell. You say that to every girl. My heartbeat thudded. I couldn't look at him. The last time I'd felt this flicker was 7 years ago. No, never. Panic flashed across his face. He feared I'd misread him. The air between us turned liquid. Julian's ears burned crimson, the tube trembling in his grip. I've never said it. It's just, with you I don't have to fake anything. He met my gaze, forcing himself not to duck, as if willing me to read the truth in his eyes. They were clear as spring water. Adrian's had looked like that once, before greed clouded them. Really? I smiled, leaning in until our foreheads nearly touched. But I'm still someone's lawfully wedded wife. Aren't you afraid of gossip in LA? His breath hitched, throat working, yet he shook his head. I care about your happiness, not rumors. He tucked a loose strand behind my ear, knuckles grazing my lobe, sparking a trail of electricity. Viv, you deserve to be treasured. The sentence slipped under every defense like a needle. I collapsed into him, arms locking around his waist, clinging like he was a life raft. The scent of youth, clean soap and faint cologne, soothed me. I nuzzled his jaw. His exhale turned ragged, eyes darkening with restrained hunger. Julian, I whispered, voice hoarse from crying, fingers lacing behind his neck as I drew him closer. Hold me. Thanks for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your opinions. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. See you next time.